Well, once again, everybody, thank you for joining us for this continuing series across the Shelton School District at the different schools to kind of highlight what's going on in the classrooms. I'm Jessee from KMAS Radio. We are here at Olympic Middle School tonight, home of the Eagles, and I'm happy to have with me Principal Mary Johnson, Counselor Grace Reneker, and Superintendent Wyeth Jessee. So again, the purpose of these conversations are just to kind of get a better sense of what happens here in the different schools across the district. We're going to be stopping at all of the schools throughout the next couple of months here to kind of give updates and information about what's going on. So I want to start these conversations off here, Mary, with you. Give us a little bit of an overview of Olympic Middle School. First off, kind of the makeup, the grades, the population you have here.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. Olympic Middle School, we are in fifth and sixth grade building, which means we're more of an intermediate than a traditional middle school setting. We have about 520 students this year. So down a little from last year, we had a large group leave us last year at sixth grade and a bit of a smaller group coming in this year into fifth grade. We have 10 homeroom teachers in both of our grade levels. So 10 sixth grade homeroom teachers and 10 fifth grade homeroom teachers. And our staff done a really good job of trying to prepare a building for this age group that's more developmentally appropriate than a traditional middle school. So our students are placed on teams, and the teams are made up of an EL and social studies teacher or two, and then a math and science teacher. So as opposed to the students this age traveling across 6 different classrooms a day, they're able to stay in a pretty small little pod with the same teachers that make up what we call a community. And then they do have, they're still going to exploratory such as music or art. And our teachers and teams work so close together to make sure that they have common expectations so that when the students do transition, that they know exactly what to expect.
Talk to me a little bit about some things that you've been excited about for the start of the school year. You're out there walking the halls, you're talking with the teachers and the students. What are you proud of when it comes to the Eagles here?
Well, we have happy students. I mean, it is so exciting to watch the students up and down the hall. While they're doing everything they can above their expectations, they're happy. They're smiling. They're, patting their friends on the back. They're skipping. I think that's one of the cutest things is you probably wouldn't see a lot of skipping at a traditional middle school, but our kids are just so eager and excited. They skip all around. Um, you could just tell the kids are so excited to see their friends, but more importantly, they're excited to see their teachers. And our teachers have really stepped up over the last couple of years. They really have bought into this notion that we need to make sure that our students feel welcome here at school and that relationships are just really one of our biggest focuses. That's what keeps kids wanting to come back every day. So our teachers bring their students to the door every day. They greet all students. It doesn't matter whether they're in their classroom or on their team or not. So you just see that kids are at the center of the work that we do. Our staff is excited and meets the students where they are, and that everybody's working together to make sure that our students are safe and successful in there.
I walked around the school a little bit before we got started. It's kind of a unique layout, how there's the central area with the big stage, and this is kind of the gathering point for lunches. How does that help with kind of the build of the relationship with the students here?
It works great. Everybody enters through the commons every morning. So whether they're coming from back door for the buses or they're coming through the front door, or whether they're coming maybe from back because maybe they need to do some specialized transportation, everybody enters and is greeted in the same space by all staff. So I would say that a child doesn't make it through any of our doors down the hall of the classroom, but probably less than 10 welcomes and glad you're here. And we look great today. But it's also just a great way to the two hallways that you see out of our commons. One is for fifth grade and one is for sixth grade. And so we also work hard to not necessarily let the fifth and sixth graders intermingle at a time. There really is a big difference development in those two age groups. So while we do have some common recesses and some common lunches, for the most part, their community is their home, and they really enjoy that.
Grace, so this is what, 10 years to 12 years old, kind of that age range there? This is an exciting time, I'm sure, for you to kind of make one-on-one connections with these kids out here. What do you see as the students are here in the new year, the adjustment period coming from an elementary school to kind of a bigger school? Now you are moving classrooms in some aspect, and there's different teachers and things like that?
Yeah, so our students have really been settling in with lots of enthusiasm. They're super curious, social, and overall just eager to be a part of something that they're not quite sure of yet. Specifically with our fifth graders coming up, they're learning new routines and gaining confidence as they discover how middle school works in general. One of the big things that our fifth graders learn is lockers. It's been really fun watching them trying to open their lockers and our sixth graders as well. It's been a new thing that a lot of our students are learning. Overall, our sixth graders have stepped up into leadership, being the kind of upperclassmen, some would say, in our building. They're helping younger students model positive behavior and overall showing pride in being the Olympic Eagles. But it's been super exciting for me to see the sense of belonging that every student is experiencing. They're kind, helpful, and happy to be here. And you can truly see that the culture of care is working with our students. They're developing it on their own as well as with staff members as well.
My son is moving into middle school, and one of the things that he's now about a month in, right, realizing that his friend group from elementary school is not necessarily the same friend group he's having here. How do you talk with kids about that? How do you explain to them that everybody's growing, they're maturing, and they're finding kind of their own path, I guess?
Yeah, I remind students all the time that the friends you have in elementary school might not be the friends you have in middle school, and then so forth. And even if when you get into high school and onto college and into adult world. So I remind them that. I also remind them a lot that you don't have to be friends with everyone, but what you do have to be is friendly. And that's kind of how I work with them on that because it can be a really trying time and going through those friendships. I also remind them that they're not the only ones experiencing that. And even I as a student experienced that everyone it's a normal thing going through developmental stages. So the big thing that I can help with them is that you don't have to be friends with everyone. Yeah, you're gonna probably lose things and become distant with people, and sometimes that's okay, and sometimes that can be really hurtful. But we do have to be as friends.
Well, how does the fifth, sixth grade model help the development as we're kind of looking at, like even Mary was saying, the fifth graders and the sixth graders are here together, but they're a little separated. Developmentally, how does this type of school, because for many, a fifth, sixth only is kind of a unique look for a school here.
Yeah, there's only, I think Mary and I have talked about this. I think there's literally only a handful of these schools across the state. It's just where you're at right now for configuration. What it means for these students is exactly what Mary and Grace were mentioning is, it's where are they at for this particular age group is what we have to worry about. I don't have to get too lost on 5, 6 necessarily. But what I have to get lost on whether it's just 2 grade levels, but what I do have to do is 2 things as a superintendent. One is making sure that where are these kids at, what do they need, and making sure that we have a safe, welcoming environment where they're trying on new friendships, understanding their emotions, especially at this grade level of like, oh, you're going to have these mix of emotions as you navigate some things working towards independence, right? That's what they're working these kids to so that they can operate more independently, making good decisions. And we expect them to skin their knee. Like there's always these stories, these kind of sometimes flamboyant stories of kids are out of control and they're bullying and all these. And I'm like, no, what they're trying to do is try on their social skills, and sometimes they're not doing it so well. What it does provide us, and I'm sure both Mary and Grace are experts in this area, is that that is a great opportunity for us to teach them because it's going to happen sooner or later. The other thing as a superintendent is just about we are a system. We get the kids in at preschool or have to be in this large complex here of schools, early learning, and then into the elementary, and then into the middle years, and then on to junior high and high school. I want to make sure that what we're trying to do is prepare our students best when they enter fifth grade, when kids can read and write at grade level and they know how to navigate routines and structures. They understand the concept that they're going to be accountable to what they do. That is going to be ready to prepare them for fifth grade. And then I know Mary works with Mary Ann over at OBGH, and our staff is When they leave here, they really got some independence over there. And so they're going to have to try those skills on, and the schoolwork gets a lot harder coming from here onto the junior high because no one's usually looking over their shoulder nearly as much and don't hold their hand. And I also know, sorry, parents, a lot of parents start to kind of move a little bit away from their 13 and 14-year-old and not also assisting so much sometimes with the academics, even though the kids really need that. And that's what I always tell parents. My entire career is saying, and I wasn't a middle school and junior high teacher, uh, was that they might look bigger, but you got to make sure to understand they're still small human beings and maybe not always right here, but bigger bodies. And so treat them more as a younger student, even though they may not like it, respectfully. But understand just because they're bigger doesn't mean they're always going to make so many good decisions, and you got to monitor them a little bit more closely than you anticipate.
Mary, explain a little bit about when you have your meetings with your teachers here, what the goals are, what kind of you look for metric wise when it comes to their learning progress. And then I see a lot of signs outside, speed limit, walking, this type of thing, you're talking. The volume level is this. So how do you engage in both the academic portion, kind of what Wyeth was talking about, and then to prepare them for junior high, but then also to prepare them to just be humans and work together in different and potentially difficult situations?
Yeah, again, great question. Well, I think one of the most important things that you have to do first is make sure that everybody understands the direction you're heading in, and then works together to make sure that I don't want to say hold kids accountable, but that we're all doing the same thing. It's structures and routines and getting those in place that allow the teachers to provide the highest level of instruction that they can. And so we, always kick off the beginning of the school year for us is always, first of all, looking at our systems instructors. What did we learn from last year? What do we know about the students that are coming in this year? What is working well? And what can we do to make sure that we can take some of the unpredictableness out of this for the students, because it doesn't matter what age students are, everybody craves structured routines. They might fight it sometimes, but they do best at that environment. So that is a big part of our launch every year, is just making sure that we're aligned, that kids know what we expect, and the teachers and everybody is working together to do that. And then that again allows us to then jump into the instructional focus. We spend a lot of time looking at our data to say, are we getting results that we want? Is what happening going on in our building right now? Is it a systems issue, meaning that a variety of students are struggling, or is it a more specific student issue or classroom issue that we need to go in and intervene at that level? So work hard to get our structures and teams, but we also jump right into academics. So just this past week, our teachers were able to look at their fall benchmark data and start making some very specific goals for their students. So we work very closely with, trying to make sure that we move all of our students forward. But the last couple of years, we've stepped into really looking at students who are almost there. With some real extra attention and some real diligent work, we can get those students up and over across the line. So that's what our teachers did. They went through and looked at the data. We had some very clear cut criteria of what we were looking at. And then together we created an MTSS list of students that would help us reach our goal. So we know, for example, in sixth grade, 31% of our students passed last year, and this year we want to get to 36. So that means if we look at our students that are coming in, we have to hold 66 students accountable that passed, and we have to get 33 more across the line to meet our goals. So we know who those students are, we know them by name, and now we're working towards what type of intervention can we do and extra support can we provide them so that we truly can.
You said MTSS. Can you explain what that is?
It's our multi-tiered systems of supports. It's very it's pretty much everything. It's academics, it's attendance, it's discipline data, behavioral needs. So we provide supports to students regardless of how they enter the building. We have tier 1 supports, which means those are supports that everybody gets. So when I talk about consistent structures and routines, classroom environment, everybody's a tier 1 student, everybody gets that. But then you expect that there's probably going to be some students who might need that and a little bit more. And so by really keeping our eyes on the data and the progression that our students are making, we can then identify the students who do need some additional support, whether that's attendance in the school, whether that's maybe some specific work on some emotional learning, or some specific like discrete skill instruction in anything from reading stamina to being able to comprehend at a higher level. And so then we'll provide additional supports for those students. And then ultimately tier 3 would be students who would get both tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 supports.
Well, how does that go into the strategic plan that you guys have been working on for so long?
As Mary said, multi-tiered systems are just a way of operating. It's a framework that you use as an arc of, all right, how do you level the services we provide and the resources we have. And so this public schools, and people heard me many times I say, like, we have what we have as our budget, and then we have to decide who needs what using data. And we use a lot of different data, but it's not just all quantitative, it's qualitative. We know each student's story, strength, and need. I press on the principals, Mary knows this very well. You need to know all your students that go here. You need to know all 550 kids, story, strength, and need, so that we can tier those support off of those services where the students are at, and then we can help them accelerate. So multi-tiered support, we don't need to use fancy, so much, educational jargon to explain this one. This one's really simple, like, all right, what do kids need when they come to the door? We have a systems way of doing that, right? We're very organized and going, all right, here's what everybody needs. But then some kids, as Mary said, need more. And then we making sure the more is a match and a fit for what they have. Because what we don't want to do is offer a support service that a student doesn't really need or is not going to meet them where they're at. Some students struggle with their fluency. Other students are going to struggle with just basic vocabulary. Or we have a lot of students who qualify for multilingual supports, and it might just be background knowledge, right? We have a lot of kids in poverty. They don't always have all those enriching experiences and things that are in some of these books. We have to take the time to explain it. That may be a core issue, maybe a tier 2 or tier 3 kind of support. Behaviors works the same way. Some students living in poverty is hard sometimes. Haven't lived that. You don't have everything. You don't know how to navigate some things. You just need to talk to somebody like Grace on an ongoing basis. She knows this. And some kids need support. We offer one-on-one supports. We do small group. We may do contracts just to kind of help them get the right habits. Also listening and working with their families and help them get on the way. So it's just a way of doing things.
So Grace, yeah, I was going to ask how you fit into this whole thing here when it comes to especially these different tier levels of support. Are you in a classroom working with students perhaps, or are you working with them in off periods, or what's your role then with these 550 students here?
Yeah, great question. So we are looking at in our master schedule, our daily schedule, to have a social emotional learning time that all students are getting tier 1 social emotional curriculum. So what I do with that is I help support teachers with that. Sometimes I will go in and lead some lessons, and that's kind of that tier 1, as Mrs. Johnson was saying. And then from there, I meet with students one-on-one, like Mr. Jessee was saying as well. I also run a lot of small groups, which are really helpful to show students that they're not the only ones that are feeling this way. Those are super beneficial to teach them skills. So I kind of do it through all of them in a way, and also helping with sometimes that story strength of need is met by me first because we're so involved in if a family is leaning on hard times and needing support, we help with things such as hygiene items, food items, so it's so all encompassing, but that's kind of how I finish.
Can you explain a little bit about what that concept of social emotional learning is?
Yeah, definitely. So our social emotional learning, it kind of just encompasses everyday, like your friendship things that we were talking about earlier, how to deal with things that upset us, like kind of those feelings that refer to a lot of people to me maybe inside out. of like how they navigate those big emotions, those big things, those day-to-day things. Granted, yes, they can go a little bit deeper, but that's kind of the best way that I explain to people that don't fully know or understand it. So like right now, it's the month of October and it's National Anti-Bullying Prevention Month. So we are in every classroom teaching a bullying prevention unit, so that classifies as a social emotional learning. So that's kind of what it encompasses. It's just kind of teaching kids what they're going through, feeling, and doing around that.
Is there a reference to what parents in school might have gone through a lesson to match with that?
Well, yeah. So one of the things, so we have a couple different ways that we launch our Tier 1 SEL program. So it is built into our schedule for every day, and 2 days a week they use our adopted curriculum, which is called Second Steps. And then the other 2 days a week, they run class meetings, and often those class meetings are created to address issues that they are seeing in the classroom, or often we will write lessons for them when we're seeing things that are more global in the building. So yeah, every week in our monthly bulletin that we send out to families, our weekly memo, there's a counselor's corner, and they share what that week's lesson is for fifth and sixth grade, and what the concepts are, and then it's a link for them to be able to go in and see those resources as well.
Another thing in the middle school framework that parents may not have seen in elementary is the ELA phrasing. Can you explain what that means and how that goes through on a daily basis?
Absolutely. So our students are in, we have a double block, 2 50-minute blocks, and it's ELA social studies. So English language arts encompasses all of the and all of the writing standards. And then also we have our social studies standards in what we call an integrated format, because so much of our social studies work along with science is heavily embedded in what's called reading informational text. So in our ability, our teachers have unit plans that have been co-created by teachers and district office staff. And I'll just say, in a I should say a week period, they have 10 blocks that they can teach because they have 2 double blocks, and they have 9 lessons to teach. And so each week there are 3 reading lessons, 3 writing lessons, and 3 social studies lessons. And they can use those and teach those in a way that they go together well for their classrooms.
These 2 grades now presumably bringing home homework, right? At times, was that a thing?
No, well, yes, it is a thing, but it's taken a while to get homework back up and running, to be honest with you. It's one of those things that sort of went kind of to the wayside with COVID, and we struggled to get it back in there. One of the things that our staff identified, they were talking about how to take their instructional practices from to kind of an advanced level, was how can we re-engage our families a little more in this work. So we decided to start off what we believe will have the most impact, and that's reading at home. So we are working with families on the importance of reading at home. And while it may not seem a lot, 20 to 30 minutes at home is an amazing impact on their overall success. Plus, it's also now starting to prepare them for what's going on when they get to junior high and high school, which will be home. So we're just kind of in a position where we're really trying to help parents regain some of those skills that maybe kind of went to the side on. Do they have a place when they come home? Do they know where to put that? Is somebody looking at what they're bringing home every day? Do they have a place where they can sit and read? So our students are taking their books back and forth every day because not everybody has books at home. And this month, for October, we just launched what's called Fall into Reading. And so we have a reading competition for every 30 minutes, a student reads at home. They get to put their name on the leaf, and we're doing some classroom challenges to see who get the most leaves in their bucket. And the kids seem to be pretty excited.
So if you're bringing a book home, or it's reading at home for 20 or 30 minutes, how do you want to see that done? Is that a student reading to a parent? Everybody's silent reading together? The parents reading to the student? They're listening to something?
How about all of the above? We want to make sure that, boy, life is busy, right? These families get home, they've often worked, parents have worked all day as well. They've got to do dinner, they have sporting events. So we do talk about there are different ways to read with your students. So sometimes, yeah, sometimes it is just that good old reading to them at night, where you're doing the reading and they're listening. And taking that to the next level by maybe asking them a few questions, even though they're the one doing the reading, to having your students read to, your children read to you. Um, and not just reading books, right? There's lots of things that students and families can do together to be considered reading. So we have a family who was super excited that they were doing some coding and that they were impressed that their child could find and read some of the ingredients. Not just the extra ingredients, but actually the entire recipe. It's like, wow, my child is never going to get the kitchen. So we do want to meet them where they are reading in the car, you're driving in the car because you are going back and forth a lot. So have your students read to their younger siblings that might be next to them. So just letting them know that it's not a one way, it really has to fit the family and where they are. And you may not get to reading every night, but you could probably read more on the weekends.
Sure. So I'll just add my piece. That, yes, the answer is E, all the above. But the thing that we are trying to get to, which is stamina and frequency. That is still a big thing in this. And some nights it is a cookbook, and I love that example because there's purpose. We have readers that are not at grade level yet, so those are good exercises, especially reading like their siblings' books sometimes. That's great. What we're trying to get to for every student, though, is to get a sustained reading. We do, for this age group, 30 minutes. We really want to get them consistently very comfortable with reading at least for 30 minutes, like to 45, like depending on where your reader's at. But I just trying to reach there, like getting 30 minutes of going on reading and on a consistent basis is the objective. As Mary said, when they get to junior high, that informational text, the vocabulary, the comprehension, that can get overwhelming if they aren't already ready to kind of read at that level for some of our students.
Let's talk a little bit more about parents' involvement in this grade, especially. I think kids, mine included, right, starting to kind of maybe not be as forthcoming with what happened during the school day, with what is going on in their social lives. Grace, what are some things either you do or Mary you do to try to empower the parents to be able to, really try to talk and connect with their students at this age group, again, about 10 to 12 years old.
Yeah, one of the things that we like to say a lot of being curious and connected can really benefit our students. So asking open-ended questions are really beneficial. Mary does a really good job in her weekly bulletin, outlining what is expected during the week so that you can kind of start some questions that you can kind of focus around and get to know. Just like at school, those structures and routines are important too. So also, and influencing families to have those bedtimes, all that stuff, it can really be beneficial. But starting with just opening questions about like, well, how was your fractions today? It can be really beneficial to even know what they're even covering in math and all that stuff.
So we get some of the emails from the teacher, presumably with you as well, for guidelines on that.
Yeah, each of our teams every month sends out a team newsletter that's really specific to kind of the things that they're doing on their team. And then every Sunday night, I send a memo to our families and our staff that just talks about the exciting things that happened the week before, what's coming up this week, just future information, and then we also post it on Facebook. So we're just trying our very best to reach as many as possible so they do know what's going on. And there are a lot of exciting things that go on that will be on the classroom. And then just a lot of phone calls. I'm really proud we have a pretty good classroom teachers this year. And calling parents can be really, it can be daunting, right? Especially for first year teachers. And so we've been able to go in and model with them how to make an important phone call. And we really encourage all of our families, all of our staff to make positive phone calls at first month of school. So that if you do have to make a phone call that's maybe a little bit difficult, you've already had that connection with them. And so there's just so much power that can be done with just reaching out, because what usually gets us in trouble is the assumptions that are made about things. And I would say, Mr. Kraft, our assistant principal, I suspect probably talks to a minimum of 20 families a day. Not because things that are happening in our building are necessarily major issues, but because they're things we want parents to be aware of and what the parts are doing. So we can go through those things.
Are these maybe like the drop off or pickup or?
He's on the phone constantly, just, hey, here's what went on, and we bring those children, our children into those conversations with them and just use it as a learning moment so that we can move forward and so just can work together and help our kids be successful.
This is a beautiful school, and we talked about this last time at Bordeaux, Wyeth, on this whole how these systems work and all the teachers that are here and the additional help. Bring it up to everybody starting to kind of think and talk about this levy impacts. What 10% of the budget we talked about last year with some matching from the state. What are some things here that you've seen that you can explain are tied in with how the levy impacts the budget at OMS specifically?
A lot. There's a lot, and it's actually almost 13% of our budget, and so it touches everything. I use the same lines. It's not just so that people understand, like, the utilities, for example, just the school. No one wants to talk about the utilities for things that I'm like, well, the state shorted us 3 million over the last 4 years. That levy's what takes up and allows this place to be heated and air conditioned. This place also has 2 heat pumps that we've had issues with. We need to replace them. They're 20 grand a piece. That's expensive, for sure. I've got para educators here that are world class para educators. This fine professional in front of me, this young lady, she knows she loves these para-educators, the librarian, the people that come through, the front office staff. Those are lovely, funded people. And counselor, my God, I got Grace next to me. She knows that. She said, probably, I think she almost kicked me on the show. But, those are, that's, it's everything but the teacher and the principal almost. And it's that much. And it gives me goosebumps. Makes it very, it's really tough when you're doing all this work and you work every day and making the connections and doing all these things that has to come down to one vote that would change dramatically about it's kind of like they say it's the funding cliff almost, and it's just, because we're got so much momentum. Walk the halls here. I get invited to come through. You see all the great things, but could you imagine it without Grace being there to greet them at the front door, as well as their other new counselor, who's also fabulous, super positive, knows wants to know the kids and work with them, and if they're educators that I reach out and make sure they're going to cross the line, no matter what it takes, reaching out to families to help them answer tough questions or what they need for resources. Front office staff that literally like it's whatever it is, they jack of all trades, to assist. That's what it is for us, Jeff. I'm not trying to be dour. I'm just trying to say, if you do fund it, you're you are continuing to fund the future of Shelton, and you're going to fund the great, amazing things. Because when you have 100 students that now can read and write right here in this district since COVID, that would have if they went to the average school in Washington State. They're coming here, and then they go on to do other amazing things. And you see it. I was at the high school today. I just had to say this one story. I was at the high school today with the leadership team. And they're already like, yeah, we're all into books. Like, we are downtime. They're already into that. Can you imagine what happens when they're coming through here and they're been felt connected, respected? Because their issue there is still with kids doing drugs and alcohol. And when you know how to read and you can navigate, you're going to make healthier choices. You're going to engage yourself. If you don't have that boredom, I know what boredom was like as a kid. Come on, boredom was a thing. And, you knew trouble was coming when you were born. And so we want to cut that down and help kids be able to rely on a book, strong friendships, having opportunities, being able to access an opportunity, wherever they choose to do. And we want to make a good living And that's going to come from the things like this levy fund. So,
I'm gonna let you riff on this a little bit, but can you explain for those who may not have ever seen a paraeducator in a classroom, what that is and what they do?
Absolutely. Well, they do everything there. I mean, para means alongside the teacher. So, I mean, they truly are teaching right alongside the teacher. Our para educators, again, we're super lucky. Just, they're extremely dedicated, but they're also very talented. So a lot of our para educators that are not necessarily working, in specialized programs like special education are there focusing primarily on getting students, access to reading. So we've done a lot of work the last year, and this year into making sure, the time that they're studying with students is direct, discrete, skill based, and it's moving those students forward. So talk about needing to know their strengths and need. That's what they need to do. So they're assigned students specifically that are on our list of students that we want to help get across the line, and they're going in and just working with them at the same level as the teacher to confer to the read, providing real discrete instruction around things that might be holding back a little bit, whatever it is that we can do to push them forward. And then just supporting them in general, making sure that they can access the great health curriculum, because we do have students who are below reading. So we have both student parent educators that are able to go and just some of that right there in the moment, bridging perhaps between a topic that they're talking about that maybe the student doesn't have the prior knowledge or background knowledge, without interrupting the class, to just kind of pair that for them and give them some information to fill that really quickly. And then working specifically, one of the things that Java does is works to really support our native students to make sure that they have the supports that they need, not just academically, but also just emotionally. And then we, of course, we could never run school without them, because they're also the ones that are helping us feed our students, supervise our students, make sure they're playing safe on the playground. They get to run off the bus every day. That's who the students see first.
All right, very good. We can put the, for some folks, that's a new concept to hear that term as a local co-teacher alongside the teacher there. You have anything else on this?
Yeah, I'll just say, really, really important at this grade level, we jokingly say this, but it really is the truth that our students come into middle school losing weight teeth that they need in puberty. And we do have a lot, if you look at our data, we have a lot of emotional, mental health type things going on as they're trying to figure things out. And we are blessed to have 2 full-time counselors, and that is only because of flood. We're blessed to have an assistant principal who is so dedicated to the students' well-being and making sure that all of them every day are able to be successful. And I think one of the things that I enjoy coming from the elementary up here is that we're also able to provide some intramurals, school socials, and activities that are starting to go on for students who want to do some self-exploration, but in a way that's safe. All those things help students want to come to school, because it isn't always just about the academics for them. Sometimes it is about makeup and about choir and about everyone sports. And so we just want to make sure that we're meeting the whole need of the child and providing them just a great array of activities and supports. And those are all things that are definitely needed if the levy did not pass.
So the sixth graders, if I'm thinking back, it would have been at the onset of their education with COVID, right? So half of kindergarten roughly, and most of first grade would have been outside of the classroom-ish.
I think it's our 5th graders, yeah.
So what are you doing? What have you seen in some of the social emotional ways that they interact? And I guess, how do you, maybe that's a good race question, how do you guys work to, I don't want to say get these kids up to speed a little bit better, but kind of get them back in the swing of things after missing some months?
One of the things I'm super excited about, so I've been in the district for a few years. I've actually been blessed to work in all 3 elementary schools, and now here at Wyeth. And every year our teachers say, every year, I cannot believe how much more prepared our students are to jump right into school. And a big part of that is because we work super hard as a district to make sure that there are common experiences and common language and common curriculum for our students. Um, just probably 5 years ago, we have 3 different levels showing up in one school for doing things 3 different ways, right? Wrong, or different, that's the way it was. Now our teachers are like, it's so much easier. They know so much language. They know what instruction routines mean. They know what expectations are. And so that is making the jump much easier. And I'm hearing that, I don't just hear that in my building, I'm hearing that in the 4th grade and hearing that from in 7th and 8th grade as well. We're all on the same page, going in the same direction, and that is safe for our students and predictable for our students.
Well, we talked about that, I think, last week when I was interviewing you on how they're going into the next grades. Everybody knows. Where does that come from? Is that a school board directive? Is that a you thing? Is that the team coming up with these? How
Well,
do you get to where you say everybody's got their own, everybody's got their own culture, everybody's got their own that stuff, whatever. But at the end of the day, everybody needs to kind of be moving along at the same way so when they get here at LMS, they all are able to meld together, I guess.
so both Grace and Mary, we keep using this thing about structures and routines, right? I mean, it's like predictability and what everybody understood expectations. And so when we started again at the preschool level and it comes up and then it's working on it year to year, they know how to navigate the spaces of education. I think that's something for newer teachers. God bless them. They come in and they're like having to navigate and like figure out how to manage 20 kids in a classroom. And over time they realize that you have to explicitly teach every aspect. And so that takes a lot of time. A lot of teachers complain, and Mary, probably she's been around a long time, like I have, just to know that like a lot of teachers like, oh, it took like a month to get them to understand what we were trying to do. And now we're finally to get some momentum. And there's enough other hiccups in education to get in the way, but you save all that time. This year, I walked into classrooms here at OMS. And they're already teaching, and kids are already in their journal because they know how to navigate the journals. They already write jobs. They already know how to do some independent reading. They know how to pick their book. They know how to get their book. They know how to do it without wrestling somebody, without touching somebody. That's a big thing for these kids. They already know those things. That allows us to not waste time. Every minute we have a lot to teach and to work with the students. We just don't have time to waste. And that's really this whole concept of working together. What's these evidence-based practices? This is what kids need in the Shelton School District. I don't know, mass. Keep working on it. And yeah, that's in our strategic plan, but it's what we know works with kids and what actually works for the educators too, because they got to give something. It's they're usually taught to kind of get in your own little world and do your thing, and that doesn't actually work very well for the kids. The kids are a lot smarter these days. In many ways, they know where the holes are in the system, and they're not coordinated, and you don't know what's going on. And they love to play that game.
I'm just about done with my questions. I don't know if anybody wrote anything down for me or not, but I think Mary, you mentioned sports that happen here, dance perhaps that happen here, some extracurriculars. What else? What else is on the school calendar for the course?
Absolutely. We're in the middle of our Great Big Chocolate fundraiser. You can't believe how much chocolate these children sell.
What's that go to?
It goes to our playground. I'm excited. So it's a joint effort with our PTSO and ourselves to be able to build, we were built as a middle school. So we don't have a traditional playground. So the last 2 years, PTSO has raised close to 50,000 dollars. And this year we are just in the process, hopefully to have 4 new basketball hoops and 2 new telephone hoops installed on our new playground. So we used to be out back, but about 10 months into the year, it's so swampy we can't play there. So we've moved our playground, and that's what the parents and the students that they want to use the money for. So we're getting some painting on our playground. We're getting some permanent basketball hoops and tether balls. We've been able to provide goals for both soccer and football, keep our equipment up and running. And the kids are really enjoying. They kind of love sitting and what we're purchasing out there and what we're doing. And so we had tentatively had one night set, but we missed that target because we're still waiting for the stuff to be installed. We want to make sure that we invite back the families over the last of the years that also work to gain, to help us make this money. So that they can see that those efforts really do make a difference every day for our students. We're in the process. I have a young boy that I worked with for probably 3 months last year. Already this month, we just had this amazing idea about some game things that we could do there. And so Grace and I are in the process of working with ASB to see if we can start a game theory club after school a couple of days a week. We would like to extend it. So these two boys are in the process of putting together a survey to find out what other things students would like to learn. So we're hoping that maybe we would have game theory for a while, and then maybe we could do drama, some things that just are not necessarily related to the school day. So we're in the process of working through that and just listening to what the students want to do, the things that they're interested in, and seeing how we can do that without taking away from all of the work that we're doing.
So now let's just think to the end of the year here. Everybody's getting ready to move on either to OBJ or to the sixth grade at OMS. What are some of the things that you would like to see from them as they're ready to move to the next year, whether it's some sort of a reading aptitude or math aptitude? And this is open to all three of you. What would you like to see either to get them to the next school or just to the next grade?
Mastering our standards. So I hope you really see the passion. Well, I mean, there's something to be said about that, right? I mean, you're going to next year, you're going to come up and they're going to get the standards of fifth grade and living as a sixth grade. So just really helping our students setting their high expectations and expecting that really goes a long ways. People don't believe in you, then there's sometimes you're not going to try very well. And so we're our students' biggest cheerleaders. We know that they can all make absolutely amazing growth. We know that the growth for each child is going to look a little different, but we are just not going to let it. We are going to do everything we can to make sure that we're preparing them academically, because that's one of the biggest challenges. So a lot of big reason that we in school is because they aren't being successful. And then just continue to work so much on their self-efficacy and the way they see themselves, and just continue to give them the tools that they need so that they can, maneuver a simple life, because let's get real, it's not fair and it's not easy.
Yeah, I would say definitely their individual voices and how they navigate the next years to come, how they work through those friendship things. That's a big thing that I like to see throughout this year. And it's always so fun for me to see when you start out of the school year, maybe not with that same friend group, but by the end of the school year, they've found their people, as they say. And so that's one thing that I really enjoy, is having their voice as well as connecting with parents is probably one of my favorite things. What I would like to see is giving some more tools and voice to the parents as well, and how we can help those students with those goals. So that's what I would like to see.
I'm going to support both of those. I think we have a little time for questions just in case the group.
Yeah.
So,
I do have one final. I was thinking what, and I know the high school implemented this. Cell phones here, what's the deal?
Oh yeah, well, I'll tell you, the first year, this is my third year here. With the crafting that started 3 years ago, and it was a really, cell phones were a big problem. Our students are not mature enough to navigate all of the things that happen on the cell phone. And so as a staff, we spent the entire fall talking about the changes that we wanted to make to really be able to make sure that our students feel safe at school. And so when we came back in January, we went to a no cell phone policy. Cell phones are in lockers and turned off from 8 to 2:30 every single day. And we had so much support from our families. We had students within the first 2 months of school saying, thank you so much. I kind of feel safe going to the bathroom because somebody's not conditioned together. So we had no cell phones for a year and a half in the rural condition. We had no problems. Parents, everybody was very supportive of that.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Because we're, navigating those things too. And they have phones, and they got watches that are enabled somehow, and everybody, everybody tries to, like you said, why find the holes in those systems. It's important to ask. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody?
She does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so can you start? Yeah. Mom has a question. Rosario, mom here, student says, sometimes I see that the equipment is not operational, such as computers and technology equipment. Why is it?
Let me just rephrase that so I can get it on the paper. Why is the equipment, some of the equipment here non-operational?
Particularly at high school.
Oh, this is a high school, but regardless, I think kind of a good overall.
Yeah, well,
Go ahead. You do Mary. You're on. Mary, go first.
speak about something here. Our equipment can be old. So I would say that we gained on a lot of Chromebooks when COVID happened. It took us quite a long time to rebuild that stock. I can't remember the percentage, but there were a lot that didn't come back and then came back. So in our building, this is our first year that we've been able to launch every classroom with an updated bundle cart now that is functional and working. So kids can be hard on that. They're getting a little bit older, seats are falling off, sometimes the screens don't work. So we work really closely with our students around, they're not in trouble with something happening, we want to tell us so that we can get those fixed. Our tech department is just absolutely amazing at getting ready in here and making sure that we can get our program person.
We want technology to be as update and as highly functional as possible. We have some high-tech equipment up at the high school because that's where your questions come from. Rosario, I love this question. A lot of that kind of equipment is funded by what we call CTE, Career Technical Education. We get funded very well for CTE, but that money can only go to those specific activities. I wish we had additional monies for other things, including for here at OMS, for example, gets no CPE money. The levy is what supports that money. That is you were asking me a levy question because what happens is the levies, the monies come in, we can use that to support technology, which we do. But it also, unfortunately, also pays for so many other items that you might have heard me say earlier. The counselors, the paraeducators, the fixing that we have heat here at OMS. And so things like technology, unfortunately, take a backseat to sometimes what we can do. So we operate, we do have technology, we do have cards in all the schools. They are operational. We're able to get through our testing and kids can write the papers. High poverty districts in Washington State still are underfunded compared to the rich districts because the rich districts can do what's called a capital levy. And so they get additional dollars that go straight to funding technology that looks really nice and fancy. And that's that's unfortunately how it is. And tell your state legislator, why is that? Tell me why. Sorry.
Thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think if there's no others, we're going to put a wrap on this one. So again, we're going to all the schools in the district and we'll be there throughout the next couple of months. Our next one is going to be in Evergreen on November 4th, again from 5 to 6 p.m. So we'll be down at Evergreen again for another conversation with the principal, either a teacher or a counselor, and Superintendent Jessee, maybe even a school board member as well on 11/4. So we would love to see you there. I want to thank everybody here watching in attendance. I also want to thank the principal here at OMS, Mary Johnson, Grace Reneker, one of our counselors here, and then Superintendent Jessee for your time. With that, thank you so much, everybody. And yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Right.